Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to Filibuster here on the Nerd Party Network, and I'm your host, Lee Hutchison. As we mentioned earlier in the month, we'd have a busy schedule this October, as I've been away covering the London Film Festival and Destination Star Trek, and this weekend Dallas will be away to the MCM Comic Con in London, and now we can start to share what we've been up to these past few weeks with you. Next week you'll get to hear interviews and coverage from the London Film Festival, but today we have a bumper edition of Filibuster filled with Star Trek Deep Space Nine cast and crew interviews from Destination Star Trek that took place last weekend in Birmingham. Many of these interviews were carried out alongside friends of the show in a round-robin manner, such as Carlos Miranda from TrekNews.net, who has appeared before on the show, and with Duncan, Barrett and Clara from Trek FM's Primitive Culture, so you get to hear all our different questions. If you read the show notes, you'll find a timeline for the interviews in this episode, so check that out. So over the next hour, you'll hear interviews with Ira Steven Behr, producer and Deep Space Nine head writer, and director of the brilliant 25th anniversary Deep Space Nine documentary, What We Left Behind. We've got Nana Visitor, who played Colonel Kira, Chase Masterson, who played Lita, Jeffrey Combs, who played many a character on the franchise, Nicole de Boer, who joined the show in its final season as Ezri Dax, and we also speak with Terry Farrell and Alexander Siddig, who played Jadzia Dax and Bashir on the red carpet of the world premiere of What We Left Behind. Thanks to all those amazing actors for joining us, and to Carlos, Duncan and Clara, and thank you to the actors as well. And thanks as well to the actors for answering our questions with such insight and warmth. I hope you'll enjoy listening to them. Hi Ira, how are you? Cool. We'll just go around. Do you want to start?
Yeah, so obviously, I grew up obsessed with Deep Space Nine. It was the first show, I was 12 when it aired, and it was the first show, the first Star Trek show. I was already obsessed with Star Trek, but it was the first show that I kind of got to watch from the beginning, right? I'd love to hear a little bit more about kind of the genesis of the documentary, like why revisit it? Was it just the anniversary? Like, talk to us a little bit about how that all came about and that kind of that original enthusiasm.
Well, it all came about because in 2012 I had an opportunity to see Avery Brooks at a convention in Las Vegas, and for the past 13 years I had not been to a convention, but I had definitely been thinking about, if not obsessing about, Avery Brooks, and he was the most fascinating man on a lot of levels that I ever worked with. And I just got fascinated by the idea of what would happen if I met Avery again. And because I had no idea. He could have blown me off. He could have, embraced me. I didn't know what Avery uses, you just don't know. So I went to the convention to see Avery, and he hugged me for about 5 solid minutes. Now think about that, 5 minutes. It got so uncomfortable after a while. Like, people were looking like, okay, this is getting ridiculous. This has to end. And it was fantastic. It was great. He was in a great mood, and it was a tremendous reunion. So I was in a good place, and I was standing in the convention hall maybe the next day, and Dave Sapone came up behind me, and Dave had interviewed me, or Bill had interviewed me for a bunch of docs. The captain's close-up, Get a Light, Chaos on the Bridge. So I knew these guys, and that's how I got friendly with Bill. So Zapone comes up behind me and goes, "Hey, let me ask you a question. We're thinking about doing a Deep Space Nine doc, and Bill's not going to do another Star Trek doc, we've done 3 in a row or whatever it was, and he's just not going to do another one. So how would you like to be Bill Shatner and interview all the actors?" No, I had never thought about doing a documentary in my life, nor did I know what it entailed, really. But I was in such a good mood and on such a high from seeing Avery and just being back amongst the fans and everything. I said yes right there without thinking. was 2012, and now we're in 2018, and you're waiting to see the film tonight. So you got to be careful what you say yes to.
Absolutely. For me, like, it's only come out in the UK this year, but this isn't the only film that you've been involved with this year. Lucky with Harry Dean Stanton came out in the UK this year, and it was one of my favourite film of the year. I felt real emotional watching it. It reminded me of my grandfather and so many things. What was it like to work on that film, and what's your reflections on Harry Dean Stanton as an actor?
Well, number one, I cannot tell you how much that movie meant to me, and how much I love that film, and I love working on that film. It was pretty magical. Now, I had known Harry briefly from Dan Tana's, the restaurant where he and Dabney Coleman held court all those years. And there was a while where I was hanging out with them a little bit, enough to get the full Harry treatment, and get to know him somewhat, and the people around him. Anyway, I get a phone call out of nowhere from a guy who I had cast as an actor, then who had become my assistant when I was doing this TV show, Alphys, and then kind of disappeared from my life. And I get this call and he goes, "Hey, meet us at the Chateau Marmont." It's like, what? Chateau? Maybe it's at the coffee shop or at a pizza. We're going to the Chateau. What the hell's going on? He goes, "Just come. We want to pitch an idea to you." And it's like, I'm like sitting at home with Nanny. It's like, okay, sounds ridiculous. So I go there, and it's John Carolynch, who I also knew from back then. So I knew John, I knew Drago, who was my assistant, and Logan, who was Harry's assistant for 15 years. I'm going, what the hell is going on? What the hell are we doing here in the lobby of the Chateau, drinking Manhattans like we're like grown-ups? Yeah. And it was like, these two knuckleheads wrote this film, and they have Harry, obviously, and they have David Lynch, and John Carroll had never directed before. They had never written before, and Harry was going to be 90, so it's like, we got to move forward on this fast. We got to raise the money. We got to get this movie made like really fast, and none of us know what the hell we're doing. So we need someone who, you want to do this, you want to produce this movie for us, and it's like, okay. So they sent me the script. I read the script. I thought, this is rice cakes. There's nothing here. There's no story. There's nothing. Got to give him a daughter. Got to give the daughter cancer. Got to get all these ridiculous, lame ideas. Went to sleep, woke up, said, okay, it's Drago. I got to give Drago the benefit. So I read it again, and I said, what am I thinking? This is the opportunity of a lifetime. Now, the script needed some work, sure, but it didn't need more plot. It just needed stuff. And I said yes, and it was just an amazing thing how it all came together, and meeting money people and this, that, and the other thing, and getting this 19-day schedule together and having these meetings. I wish we had filmed them in Harry's house every weekend, and we would go over the script with him, or we'd go over in pre-production, we'd go over the script and just have talks. Then when we got into it closer, we'd go over the week's work. And of course, he would be so obstreperous and arguing about it. It was all written about him. I mean, it was lines he had said, stuff I had heard him say. And it's like, why am I saying this? Why are you saying this? Because you said it. Because it's what you believe. No. Why am I saying this? Why is Lucky saying this? And it was an amazing thing. And the cigarettes and the game shows on constantly. So every time you got to stop and watch the game shows and what's the question and do you know the answer? And then we'd have we're all making this movie, he said, because we're all enlightened, right? We're all enlightened. Like, okay. Sure, Harry, I'm enlightened. And Drago goes, yeah, okay, I'm enlightened. And Logan, of course, goes, yeah, I'm enlightened. And John Carroll Lynch goes, well, I don't think I'm enlightened. Then why the F are we making this movie? Then if you're not, it's like, John, what the hell, man? Just say you're enlightened, so we can talk about it. So it was just amazing. And we shot in the heat, up in Piru, and all these places, Sand Canyon, 120 degrees, and Harry's walking around smoking and refusing to drink water, and and all the times when we were at Dantana's, I've never seen him eat. I've seen him drink. Occasionally he'd go, I'd give him my tomato, half a tomato off my plate, and he'd spend an hour cutting it up into 100 pieces. But I never saw him eat a meal until we did the movie. When we did the movie and we had craft services, he actually ate a little bit. But I love that movie.
Thank you very much for bringing it and bringing the Turtle Roosevelt to life and stuff like that. It's honestly such a brilliant movie. Thank you.
I think that movie has legs. I think that's a movie that people will discover, as time goes on, more and more people will get behind that movie. It's a beautiful little film.
Perfect, thank you.
Just coming back to Star Trek, one of the things that I love most about Deep Space Nine is I feel of all the Star Trek series, it feels like the one that's the most kind of committed to and connected to real world history in some ways. And I'm a historian by trade. Clara and I present a podcast all about Star Trek and history. So we talked about the French Resistance, we talked about recently the Attica Uprising in past tense and so on. And I was just wondering, as a writer and as in the writing room, were you kind of specifically doing research into these kind of real world things? I mean, were you reading books about the Holocaust or about French resistance or whatever it was? Or was that just all sort of in the background feeding into the stories you're writing? Would you go away and kind of look for inspiration in the real world to write these stories?
Well, when you're doing 26 a year, you're looking inspiration everywhere.
Right.
In your heart, in your life, in events. By the way, I just read Blood in the Water, the book on Attica. Yeah. That's an amazing book.
Last week.
We were up in Skywalker doing the mix on the dock, and I'm reading Blood in the Water. It was not the best time to be reading that book, because that book broke my heart in a million pieces every 5 pages. It's tough. But like, for instance, Past Tense came about because Robert Wolfe had said, he wanted to do. He'd been talking about doing this show about the underprivileged and poor, and it was like, but what's the context? And I was out in Santa Monica for some reason, overlooking the ocean, and it's beautiful, this grassy walkway, and all these homeless people are lying there in the grass. Now I get it, it's Santa Monica, if you're gonna be homeless, it's not the worst place. But people were stepping over them like they were living sculpture. They were just ignored. I mean, it was, and I was watching this from afar, and that's when I went back on Monday and said, we're doing a show about homelessness, because it was right there in my face at that moment. There was no way not to do a show about the homeless. It suddenly was I couldn't ignore it. So that's how things came about. Far Beyond the Stars was some ridiculous story that was pitched to us about Jake and these aliens who were putting him back in the 1950s with these sci-fi writers to see how human beings, and he was and we said no. We passed on that show, and then like a year later or 6 months later, I was in my car and I suddenly started thinking about, I read somewhere that Philip K. Dick was eating dog food at some point in his career because he couldn't make money off of his stories. And I'm thinking, and C.L. Corn, whatever her name was, who was the female writer who had to use her initials in order to get published. And I thought of what would happen to an African-American writer who had this great idea for this massive, stories about this space station with a black captain, and then it just became that. So I at the time, I was not a big fan of issue-oriented TV because I felt it was preaching to the converted and it was an easy way to score points with an audience. I am not so happy we did those episodes because, of course, I was sadly mistaken because all those issues never go away. Racism never goes away. It goes underground for a while until it becomes okay to be a racist again, unfortunately, when the powers that be give you the permission for the weaker angels of our nature to come forward. Homelessness is now, it's just off the charts what's going on in Los Angeles with the homeless. I really think that it's a plan. There's so many homeless on the street. I think it's to get people to complain so they can start the sanctuary. I mean, there's something, and in terms of the historical record, it is so broken in America that no one knows jack shit about anything about history from 10 years ago. Forget Vietnam or anything like that. Attica, they don't know what frickin' Attica is. They don't know what Dog Day Afternoon is. They don't know who Al Pacino is. They don't know who walked on the moon, where there is a moon, what is the moon surround. I mean, it's pathetic. We live in a world where technology is giving us access to everything, all human knowledge, and all people have no interest in knowledge because it's at their fingertips. They don't have to work for it.
Are you talking about me?
Yeah, exactly.
100%. Perfect.
That'll be a good interview.
Vaughn Armstrong, ladies and gentlemen. No.
So one of the characters in Deep Space Nine that I've always thought was a brilliant character was Golden Hat, because he's the villain, but he thinks he is the hero of the show. And it's almost like there could be an alternative Deep Space Nine where Dukat is like the Cisco character. And I want to know if that was a deliberate choice to make him somebody who was really a very complex villain who thinks he's doing what he's doing for the best, like the good of his people, even the good of the Jorans.
Well, a lot of it had to do with Mark Limo, who played it, as you said, as he was the hero of the show. We got a big kick out of that. I loved the character. What I did not love was the fan mail we were getting. I mean, people were drawn naked. It would be Golden Cod in the Kardashian makeup from the neck up, and then there'd be these naked pictures of him with his junk hanging.
Is this going to be in the documentary? I want to see if that's a big screen.
There's a lot about Mark Limo. Mark Limo, I think, of all the actors, but he was a fantastic character. But I did not like the fact it's like women who marry serial killers. Just because he had a daughter, and just because Hitler liked children. So we forgive Hitler for what he did, but somehow the fans were just beginning to be too enamored of this son of a bitch, and I just refuse to allow that guy to get off. You don't kill 15 million people. You're not part of that system, a big part of that system, and think you're okay because you have a heart. So ultimately, I had a heart, and Mark hated every time I called him a Nazi. All he kept doing is he was following orders, and he was a good soldier, which is a freaking Nazi, you moron. but so
I'm not one of those women, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm not. I just want to emphasize that.
But no, he's a fantastic character. He owned that stage when he was on that stage. When he was in those dailies, whenever he made Avery step up his game. Any actor, just like Avery made the other actors step up their game. So yes, Golden Cod.
Really quickly, tell us the story of your Deep Space Nine ring. I just noticed it.
Well, this was the ring we gave out as a gift. This was the crew gift at the end of the show.
Right.
And of course, we always gave out gifts. We gave out, one year it was a underpants with a 9 in the front and the wormhole coming out the back. We gave a Beavis and Butthead t-shirt for Deep Space Nine, but this was the one, and inside, if I can get it off, it says, "Lest We Forget," which was from the John Ford film, She wore a yellow ribbon when they gave him the watch at his men as he's retiring from the army, lest we forget. And we handed it out to everyone, and Barry Jenner, who played Admiral Ross, came over to me literally with tears in his eyes, and he said, my father and I used to watch She Wore a Yellow Ribbon when I was a kid, and he died. And when he saw that, no one else seemed to know, but he looked inside, so lest we forget, and he just broke out in tears. So someone got it.
Amazing.
Someone understood it. So I don't wear it all the time. I just wear it when I do the interviews for the doc, which everyone should go see when they get a chance, because it's good.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All the
so
best.
much.
Appreciate it. Cheers. I remember the first time I met Kira was when I was like a young fan. I was like 7, 8. And Kira was something like, I hadn't seen a female character like that on TV at that kind of age. You know, someone that had short hair, military background. I hadn't seen Aliens yet. So Kira was like my first entryway into like a strong female character. You know, we'd seen similar things on Star Trek, but not quite like Kira. What was it like for you building that character up? How much of it was your influence and how much was it kind of the writers and that collaboration?
When I read the audition, I thought they'd made a mistake, that it was actually for a male character, because there was no talk of me being connected to another male, which were the roles that I was used to. I was a victim, or a girlfriend, or a wife, or a mother, or a murderess, that too. But not this well-rounded professional person with a past. So I had a very specific, once I realized they correctly sent the audition to me, I decided very fast who she was and where she was, and it felt very close to my heart. And I walked in and I was that person from the moment I walked into the audition. So from that audition, we kind of melded the words, and who Kira was going to be melded, because they chose my way. They could have chosen someone else's way with the words. So it was a marriage from then on.
I just gotta say that since I started watching Deep Space Nine when I was 12, and Kira was from the beginning, I think, a character really. I was raised by very strong women. My grandmother was a very large kind of figure in my household, so I was always kind of very attracted to these like very strong female characters. And Kira is my number one Star Trek character, and it always has been. In fact, we have a dog, which I said to the guys I was going to show you, named Kira. And she is...
a bitch.
No, she's the best. That's her.
Oh!
And she's this gorgeous Frenchie, and she's named Kira.
I love it.
And I tell my kids, kids are a little bit... I have 6-year-old twins, and I always say to them, when you're older, we'll watch Deep Space Nine, and you'll understand why Kira is named Kira, and why it's my favorite character. But, aside from that... Looking back on the legacy of the show, and looking back on the legacy of your character in particular, what's the one thing, that was a good day's work, that's amazing, and I am proud that 25 years later, this one thing resonates still with people?
There's a lot, but there's one seemingly silly thing that it immediately pops into my head when you say that. And it's Kira eating porridge. Because again, at the time, women picked at food. Women weren't supposed to be hungry.
Right.
There was a way to eat and be polite and talk and look attractive. And I made a choice that she was hungry and she ate. And it didn't matter who was talking to her. If her mouth was full, her mouth was full.
Right.
But she had an appetite for life, for truth, for sex, for food.
Right.
And I made that choice very consciously.
Right.
And so that's what pops into my head.
Major Kira eating porridge.
Eating porridge and enjoying it.
Right. Should be on a t-shirt. Lee.
No, that's...
So, I was wondering if I could ask you a little bit about Odo and Kira's relationship, because some people love it, some people don't. I always thought it was kind of nice that they became friends and then eventually became lovers, and I thought that was quite realistic. And I was wondering, were you actually supportive of that right at the beginning, or did you feel like it was a strange detour that you didn't see coming?
I wasn't. a fan of it. Mostly because at the time, again, it was really the typical thing. You know, it was like the sitcom thing, Friends, and there's a tension, and what is it? Oh, they're sexually attracted to each other. And I really would have loved for a woman to be able to be friends with a man and have it just be a deep love that didn't have to do with sex. Also, I would have loved to have had a relationship with an alien that wasn't so humanistic. I always had a problem with my leading men on the show, really, because I always thought, you know, it was the Times idea of a good-looking guy, or it was a main character. And it would have been so nice if it was someone, you know, just off the lizard guy off the promenade. Yeah. It's like, no, that's who I happen to want.
Morn.
Yeah, Morn. Right, exactly. Yeah.
Because there is a moment in the show when Jadzia is reconnecting with one of her previous partners, who's now in the body of a woman, and both of us are watching that episode, and we noticed that Kira really doesn't see, like, she doesn't see gender in the same way as the people. She was sort of questioning it, sort of saying, like, what's wrong with them being together? And so we sort of thought perhaps Kira was just much more open-minded than a lot of other characters in terms of relationships.
And yet, the men, the males that she chose were these, you know, big-chested guys. It made sense because they were emotional connections for her. But I would have preferred it if it had been someone a little more surprising.
The lizard guy from the promenade.
The lizard guy. Yeah, why not him?
I've heard quite a few fans say that because of what we saw in the Mirror universe, that actually they assumed that Kira in the Prime universe was bisexual and we just never saw her with a woman. So I guess that would again play into these kind of different possibilities.
Well, I'll tell you my feeling about that. And a lot of people made the assumption that I was gay.
Right.
As if in the spectrum, you know, first of all, I need to be labeled or claimed. And that in the spectrum of being female, if you have any kind of aggression or passion or, you know, or short hair, oh, you're one of those. I didn't want to be associated with any pack mentality. You know, I really would love it if we, and I understand support systems, but at some point, if we can all just be the individual we are on the spectrum, whatever it is, and be cool, that would be wonderful.
What was it like for you playing the Mirror version of Kira the Intendant? Because I feel like when we look at Discovery, and Discovery spent almost half their first season in the Mirror universe.
Oh, wow.
And I feel like a lot of it actually almost stemmed from that character in particular. You know, partly the kind of iconography of the Mirror universe, but definitely all the kind of sexuality and all the kind of sex and power games going on. You can trace back to that one character in Deep Space Nine in the way that you played it. I'm kind of curious, what was that like for you, getting that script and thinking, wow, this is different from every other day at work? Do you know what I mean? I'm playing something different here. It
was such an intellectual exercise because I had to flip her. She was the flipped version of Kira. So Kira was, you know, to me, she was a little bit Joan of Arc-ish. I think she would have gladly given her life for what she believed in. So the Intendant was a true narcissist. And that was another thing. She wasn't in love with Kira because it was another woman. She was in love with Kira because she looked just like her. And it was, everything came back to her. It was all about her. And that was like, okay, now wait a minute, it was a constant shift of what does a narcissist feel in this situation.
How, you know, it's interesting, when you love something, especially as a kid, it's really hard, I think, to kind of go back and critique it. And to me, Deep Space Nine is almost perfect, right? And one of the things to me that I always kind of, if I was Ira and I could go back and change it.
Yeah.
The fact that the final duel is not between Kira and Dukat, even as a kid, I was like, it needed to be Kira and Dukat.
You and me both.
And I just, like...
You and me both.
Does reflecting on it being like 25 years, doing a documentary, looking back on it, does it bring up that kind of eye of like, oh, I wish that had maybe been changed, or sitting and reflecting on something and, oh, I wish that had been different,
No,
whether
that
lovers or
was
that.
in the moment. That was in the moment. It was like, it needs to be me.
Yeah.
You deserve it.
Yeah.
She deserves that.
Yeah,
moment.
but he was number one on the call
Fair
sheet,
enough.
and his it needed to be dealt with. He needed to have a real ending because they were not killing him. They were
It made sense.
deifying him, I guess.
And do you think that kind of relationship was ahead of its time in what we're kind of seeing now, that we had this strong female character resisting, that was about resistance, facing off against sort of a kind of totalitarian fascist sort of dictator who oversaw kind of her homeland and oppressed rights? Do you sort of see a lot of Kira in kind of a lot of kind of the women's marches today, kind of a lot of the resistance kind of movement in America?
Yeah, and it's amazing to me. It's amazing to me. Some of the things that I imagined playing Kira, because of course I just kind of poofed this world, or the world we were in then, and it was Kira's world. Now these young women are making, like the Me Too movement in particular, the way it was for women in the business 25 years ago, I'm so proud and so glad, and I've learned a lot. Because Kira, of course, was there, but not me. Not me. I had just talked about being pregnant on the show. I certainly didn't feel like I had a right to be pregnant. I felt like I had to hope that I wasn't going to be fired and not make any trouble and not ask for anything and keep my head down. That was the reality of the time. So I don't feel like young women on shows would be like that now. It's pretty great.
So that's kind of like what Star Trek is, though, right? It's presenting this utopian version of what we want. So Kira is kind of the utopian version of what we want women to be. We want them to be strong and to develop and to not be harassed.
And have a right to be unreasonable, and have a right to be wrong, and have a right to learn her lessons, and grow. Have that space to grow. And there were people at the time that didn't want my character to have that space to grow. They were like, "Oh, she's a bitch. This is no good." And to just go, well, I gotta keep going with what this is. I gotta do the truth of this character, and that eventually she came out grown up was a gift. It might not have happened, but it did for her.
But there is that sort of argument that people say women are aggressive, like you're acting aggressive, but actually if a male character was behaving that way, you wouldn't see it as aggressive. They attribute that behaviour as aggressive because it's a woman, whereas I felt Kira had a right to be angry at Cisco right at the beginning of Deep Space Nine. This is her planet. They fought to get rid of the Cardassians, and the Federation is coming in and taking over. So that was an interesting, what you just said is very interesting, the idea that people thought she was a bitch. I really felt like she was protecting her homeland.
Right. But don't forget, you're much younger people looking at this.
Although we were watching it at the time, I don't know, maybe our views have changed over the time, but yeah, you're right, that's the younger generation growing up.
You were younger and you
DS9
grew up.
was our Star Trek,
and
that's
it
what
helped.
we grew up with. Yeah.
That helped.
I'm curious, one of the other things that I suppose was unusual for Star Trek in the character of Kira, of course, was her religious faith, because, before DS9, Star Trek had been very kind of, it's quite sort of militantly atheistic and very looking down on religion, and here was a character who was a main character, and who her faith was, not essentially a mistake. Do you know what I mean? It was something that was a key part of her.
Right.
And I'm curious, because I feel like you brought a lot to that character. Did that come from your own background, your own experiences, or was that sort of just, where did you kind of pull that spiritual side from?
It was definitely written in, and I think it was absolutely their intention to have this be a spiritual character, and to look at all that, to look at what that is. Because, it's one of the things that causes conflicts. So I think that was a big part of it. Not hard for me to play or understand. Not at all.
It's amazing to me, like the influence that Kira has had on other sci-fi franchises. In fact, we did Jim over there runs a podcast called Trek Ranks, where he ranks 5 episodes. Like it's like we talk about, we rank things on the show, and he had me on for the Major Kira episode because, again, obviously it's my favorite character. And in kind of preparing for the podcast, I read that Ron Moore named Starbuck in Battlestar Galactica Clara because of Kira, right? Which I didn't know. And I was like, that's really interesting. Yeah. And,
wow.
And so, like, Clara, and I found interview after interview where he said, look, I named it Clara because I wanted it to be in the same mold as Major Kira. So her name's Clara Thrace because of Kira,
wow.
which I didn't know, right?
I did not know that either.
And you kind of, there's a couple of, like, guys on the Star Wars kind of, that work for Star Wars that I follow. And there's a couple of the guys at Lucasfilm that are huge Star Trek fans, right? And they talk about Kira regularly. Like, I don't know if you guys follow Pablo Hidalgo and these, like, big guys in this story group. And they talk about the character of Kira and how it influences, like, the female Star Wars characters as well. And
that's
in fact,
fascinating.
And that they were going to name Rey's character Kira originally, right? And so it is like it is amazing. Like, I think something that Star Trek fans don't appreciate, the fact that if you were a fan of the show, I think your character really impacted, I think, our generation, right? Not that we're necessarily super young, but like, and people that then went on to work in other sci-fi franchises, I think, carried that character with them. So I think it's something. It's amazing.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's
but the
cool.
Clara Thrace and the Kira on Star Wars all because of Kira.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in fact, in Solo, Emilia Clarke's character is named Kira.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and that's no coincidence. There's a direct correlation.
My husband, when we watched it, said, Kira, I bet that's because of you.
Yeah.
I was like, no. No.
Back on WhatsApp now.
Key members of the Star Wars, like, story group that manage all of the films, the story and all the films, they're all huge Star Trek fans. Huge
Fascinating.
Star Trek fans. And they're huge Deep Space Nine fans.
Fascinating. Well, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
Terry, my question is, I've been lucky enough to see the film, and your moment in the film is a very emotional moment. You talk about how your exit from the series, how you were told that you'd be essentially working in a kind of supermarket. What was it like for you to kind of revisit those kind of memories and to see them kind of laid bare on kind of the big screen essentially again?
Well, I haven't seen it yet. Yeah. This will be my first time tonight, but going through it was a really difficult time to go through because I really felt I felt like it was really unjust how I was being treated. Like being told that if it wasn't for them, because I'd had a career. It was obviously Dax was the most important character I'd played up until that point, but I did have jobs and I worked every summer when I was on Deep Space. So it wasn't as if it was my first job, and if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have a career.
Absolutely.
God, it's been the most amazing character I've ever played. He's really unbelievable. I feel like if they brought Spock back, they could bring me back, even more so now that I'm married to his son.
Absolutely.
Someone's got to figure it out.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, and all the best for tonight, and enjoy the movie. Cheers.
Thank you.
So we're here with Nicole de Boer. It's fantastic to have you with us. I just wanted to ask, first of all, we haven't yet seen the DS9 documentary, though some of us are going to see it this evening. But I gather from some of the advanced material that because they talk about what might happen in a kind of hypothetical season 8, Esri is in there as a captain. You know, in some of the novels, Esri been promoted to captain. She has this kind of off-screen future.
But sorry, you saw that I was you saw promos that showed that I was a captain?
Yeah, in a cartoon, an animated session. Is that wrong? Well, maybe we'll find out. Maybe it's a spoiler. But anyway, I'm just curious. You only got one season on Star Trek compared to, a lot of the guys who got 6 or 7 or more. Do you feel like you have any kind of unfinished business with Esri, or is that kind of a door that's closed for you?
I mean, I am ready to come on the new show as Esri now. I think that makes sense. Plus, I'm from Toronto, and that's where they're shooting it. So,
well, there you go.
It makes perfect sense to me to see where she's at now. I would love to continue playing her at this point because she wasn't ready to be joined, and it was a lot for her. And so now, all these years later, it would be really cool to see this character at this point. Yeah, so I would love that. And to be captain. I don't have to be a captain. I just want to be on the damn show.
Fair enough. But it's cool to be a captain. Let's be honest. It'd be cool to be a captain.
It would be cool to be. If it's not captain, it's got to be up there.
First officer.
something like that.
And the captain dies.
Vice Admiral.
Yeah, then the captain dies. Then the captain. Yeah.
For me, my question is sort of out with Star Trek, that obviously you did Deep Space Nine, then you worked with Michael Piller, who has a long association with Star Trek in The Dead Zone, which was one of my favourite shows.
Really?
I thought it was criminally underrated.
Thank you. Yeah.
I want to know, like, what was it like working with Michael Piller, that he was someone that was so instrumental in making a Deep Space Nine. We've now kind of lost him. What was your experiences and memories of working with this, like, television genius?
Really, it's amazing. When I did Star Trek, I didn't really see him. He was on the lot working on, I just never really met him much. I met him once briefly. And then when he did The Dead Zone, he asked me to audition because he liked my work as Ezra Dax in Deep Space Nine. And then getting to work with him, I actually spoke about it in the documentary, but it unfortunately didn't make it into the doc. Again, it's just so much. They had so much material, and they could only, he was like a father figure to everyone, kind of thing, and such a smart man. He wrote so well for female characters. I felt like too, like not making them too like this has to be a female, but there was a warmth that Michael had, and yet in his writing, and yet in real life, he was a little more, strict. It was like I wanted to make my strict dad happy. It felt like that in a way, but he was. It's really sad that he's gone, and his son continues on, and I'm doing a show right now with him in Canada called Private Eyes.
Awesome.
Sean Piller has basically become a Canadian. He does Haven, he shot in Nova Scotia, now Private Eyes, and he finished doing the rest of the Dead Zones. He took over the helm, and he's an amazing producer.
Perfect, thank you.
So going back to a second to Deep Space Nine, so I was interested, kind of curious that, so like Jadzia was one of my favorite characters growing up. I mean, Jadzia was amazing, right?
Yeah, great character.
And then you all of a sudden you're like, oh, they're going to replace Dax, and you're like, well, and I remember when it was kind of pre-internet days. I was like, I don't know, maybe 15 years old when all of this happened, and you're like, okay, who's this character going to come in? And you came in and did such a very different character to Jadzia, but it was like you kind of fell in love with that character immediately, and you accepted her immediately. But what kind of instructions were you given, or direction were you given, kind of coming into it, because it was the last season, and I'm just kind of curious, what did they tell you how to play the act, like to play this character?
I have to say, even when I hear the word replace, it makes me feel weird.
Fair enough,
because, and also I just didn't even know. I did watch TNG, but I never did watch Deep Space Nine. Yeah. There's a whole reason, because I had a boyfriend who auditioned for Bashir in the beginning. He didn't get the part, and we were like, well, screw that show. We're not going to watch that show. So I hadn't watched it, which was kind of a blessing, because I think I would have been way more nervous had I watched it. And what they said to me was, it all happened very quickly. The audition, the audition was a tape I sent in. They flew me down. I got the part. I found out right away, and then I had to come in and get my wardrobe and get on set. It was like being hung, It was like boom, 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 go. And so I didn't have too much time, which was also, I think, a blessing. Right. They gave me some tapes back then, VHS tapes to watch, some specific ones like the pilot and a couple of other ones. And I tried to absorb that, but they said, remember, although you have all these other lives in you, Ezri doesn't know really how to juggle it, so that also helps me, right? Yeah. But they said, you're mostly Ezri, you're not Jadzia, you're a whole new character, Ezri, and that's who you're playing. So I didn't really think of it as replacing or anything like that. It was a new character, and that's kind of what they told me, and they said as we go along in the writing, you'll see what to do, but basically you're going to come in and be Ezri, which is a new character for us. And I have to say, just when I read it, the first time I had the audition, like as an actor you read stuff and sometimes I go, oh, that's not me. I just don't feel it. I don't see myself in that role. As soon as I read Ezri, I was like, that's my part. Yeah. I know how to do this. And because I had watched Star Trek, I was like, I know how to be on Star Trek. I know how to be a Star Trek character, and this is my character. Amazing. It's just magic. It just all worked. Yeah. So I luckily came in feeling really good about it. Yeah.
It is amazing. I think that in one season you were able to really flesh out this character, and by the end you were just, for very different reasons, you just love Ezri as well. So
Thank you for
an
saying that.
amazing character.
Thank you.
So the question I had was, there's a lot of talk now about how the women on Discovery are these powerful,
Yes.
strong female characters, but what struck me was that Ezri was one of these characters that came before, and she's quite underestimated.
Yes. Yeah.
But I watched an episode recently called Part Podcast, in which she is the counselor to Garrett, who's a very difficult person
Yeah.
to provide any support to. And I wanted to know, have any sort of female fans come to you and asked you and talked to you and said that they found you inspiring as a strong female character?
Well, for sure. I mean, from the beginning, I that was so surprising and nice to have people write to me and say how inspirational I've been, or gotten them through hard times, or going through an awful time or a hard time in their life, and they really look to Ezri for they help them find their own strengths within them, and that was so touching and amazing to hear. And then I went, I guess I would. Yeah, I can see that. That's wonderful, you know. And then even now, more recently, I'm starting to see another thing in recent years, which is trans people saying that they're, and I'm like, of course, I never really thought about that before too, because of course she's been a man, she's been, you know, it's whatever, and then love is love, and then one time you're in this body, next time you're in this, but it's all, and I think that's really interesting too, you know, because here she is coming into this situation. They remember her as something else. Now she's a whole other person, and I'm like, wow, yeah, that's a really cool thing about her, you know. So, yes, I have heard that. And also going back and watching it recently, I forget how confident Ezri really was in certain ways. You know, I keep thinking that she was all messed up, but she was confident too, and she grew into her own more and more. And that's why I think it would be really cool to see her now, you know.
And you've got the example in Discovery of the counselor who's become an admiral as well. So they've kind of, I guess with Troy, they got to that right towards the end of Next Gen. They started kind of promoting her and putting her in the uniform, so taking her more seriously as an officer. But now we've kind of established, you can start as a counselor and kind of.
I jumped right up to lieutenant right away. That was pretty cool. And I always bugged Garrett Wang about that. He was always an ensign, and I was like, I got promoted in like a couple episodes or whatever. It's like, oh, cool.
But it's funny that, I'm sorry, just really quickly, it's funny that you say that, because you do think of Ezri originally as kind of like, well, she didn't want to be joined, and obviously she's joined, and she's a little bit confused. But I think we were talking about this not that long ago. There is a scene in a later episode where you basically tell Worf that you think that the Empire.
That speech.
I mean,
I just rewatched that recently.
That is not like it does take confidence to say to Worf. And obviously there was the whole you were kind of married and all of that. But still, there is a kind of a quiet strength in Ezri. That is I think sometimes overlooked, but that speech in particular.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
Sorry, I cut you off.
I was just curious. I think it's about 20.
Well, they wrote it. It was a great
fair enough.
It was a great speech.
The delivery. You delivered it though. The delivery was amazing.
You sold it.
Yeah.
It's pretty much bang on 20 years, right? I think now since you started on DS9. I'm just curious, how have your feelings about Star Trek and about Ezri changed in the course of that time when, you had so much going on in your own life and so on?
Right.
But yet you're coming back to these conventions and kind of re-engaging with that.
Well, it's never left me because I do the conventions, and I'll at least do maybe 2 a year. So all these years, it's never left me, and it never will, and I never want it to leave me. I'm so proud of it, But yeah, I've gone on to do other shows, but because of the conventions, it's always with me, and I'm always talking about Star Trek. And, I love the character more and more. And then as I'm going back and watching the episodes I hadn't seen before because I hadn't watched the show, and then appreciating going, wow, I love Kira. That's my favorite character now, and getting to know them better over the years. So it just grows and grows, my feeling for all of it. And now Discovery too, and you've got these new actors coming on, and for whatever anybody says about it, these actors are so lovely, and they're in there loving being part of Star Trek too, and they're working so hard, and I enjoy the show. I really enjoy it. But it's this big Star Trek family that's really special to be part of, and I'm just super honored and happy to be part of it.
for most people, your first appearance of as Ezra was when they got to know you, but for a chunk of sci-fi fans, it was Cube.
Yes.
It's like one of the best original kind of sci-fi movies. It has spin-offs. What was it like working on Cube? You had like a great cast of people, like, even like David Hewlett, who would go on things like Stargate, for example. What was it like being on Cube and the experience? Did you expect it to become the cult film that it was?
Well, I didn't know it would become such a hit. It was one of these small films that came out of the Canadian Film Centre, and they choose one person each year. They get a budget of $250,000 to make their little indie film. And Vincenzo Natali got it that year, and I just thought his writing, that script was amazing. And I auditioned and got the part. It was great. And then I was like, oh yeah, I'm with David, because I'd worked with David before. But it was grueling, because it was literally just that cube. That was the set. And you're squished in there with the camera and the boom guy. And a friend of mine passed away right before we started shooting. So I remember it being pretty tough, but that was okay. I used it, I was like, okay, you got to use all this, because that's what they're going through. They don't know what the hell they're doing in this cube. It's crazy. So it was a little tough, and we only did it in like 16 days, shot the whole thing. So that hats off to them. They made it look fantastic. And then on top of it, we got some free core CGI was donated their services, which made it look so much better than $250,000. Of course, all that went to my salary. It was one of those deals with the union where you get paid at the back end. You get a little bit up front, and you get paid, and nobody ever sees that money. But because the film did so well, we all got checks, and we were like, whoa, it's amazing. Yeah, did really well.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you so much for asking about that.
Cheers.
So this is going to sound like a strange question, but I'm not an actress, I have no acting experience.
Okay.
So I actually saw you as a young teenager, and it really, really frightened me. And I wondered, your performance was really, really good. You seemed to be good. Just out of curiosity, is that actually sometimes frightening, or are you actually smiling acting all the time? Like when you're filming a TV series or
when something's scary, okay, you know what you have to say. This is a classic, Prom Night 4. I am the star of Prom Night 4, old school horror movie, right? That's old school, where I'm the virgin, so...
Let's get this streaming on someone's Netflix in the hotel. We'll get some popcorn.
Oh my God, it's so bad good, It's amazing. And I was really scared, because I get scared. I don't go see horror films. I don't like to be scared. I used to be scared when my mom played this game with me where she pulled our dog back, and I'd run around the kitchen and she'd let him go, and I'd be like, oh my God, he's right on my tail, and I would get scared just doing that. So yes, I really get scared in the moment if something, all the lighting is down and it's creepy.
I mean, you are being filmed.
I'm being filmed, but I'm like, I'm actually really fucking scared right now. So yeah.
Yeah, I thought maybe in Cube that was the case. You did such a good job.
That was more psychologically scary, so I was just totally acting, and that was brilliant acting.
It's good acting.
But in Prom Night 4, I'm actually scared.
That's amazing.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Nicole. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, guys. That was really
All
fun.
the best, and enjoy your weekend. Cheers. So obviously it's 25 years since Deep Space Nine's come along, and you have this huge impact as you were basically a guest star, but for most people they consider you a regular character. You were on so many series. How do you feel 25 years on from Deep Space Nine to all these different characters you played? You're not just Weyoun, you're Brunt, you're guest stars in this episode and that episode.
How do I feel? Well, I would never have imagined that 25 years later there would be such incredible enthusiasm and look at this place. It's packed with the people that Star Trek means so much to. It always humbles me. I get in line with people and they're literally quivering with excitement, not because of me, but because they're in the midst of people that mean so much to them, I don't know, it's pretty overwhelming if you want to know the truth. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around it a little bit, but I'm grateful for it.
And if you find that with a lot of your characters, that even like in Reanimator as well, it's a character that people are still associating with, talking about. They remake it, there's stage plays, and
yes, I mean the little movie that I did with a small R, low budget, no one's ever going to see this, it's really difficult for you to process that it blows up into sort of iconic status for people, you know, and then they expect me to be like Herbert West, which I'm not.
For our listeners, you're not wearing a lab coat.
Oh, you know, when I would come home from shooting Reanimator, I actually had a little black cat at home. And so during the day, I'm like destroying cats, and then I come home and hello, you'll never believe what I did today. It's a strange business that we're in. But
thank you.
I guess one of the reasons that you have featured so much in Star Trek is that you're one of those actors who can play very different parts and have that kind of chameleonic quality.
Chameleonic. Did you just say that? I love that.
There you go.
Chameleonic.
You can put that on your CV if you
like.
Is it something that you kind of, does it just come naturally from the script, or are you kind of thinking, how am I going to differentiate this character, or how am I going to kind of build this character to really realise each one of those into a very different person?
I'd say it's a mixed bag. For one, preparation, and by that I don't mean preparing to play this role, I mean preparing to be an actor in the first place. By the time I came to Star Trek, I've had quite a bit of, training, done a lot of theater, which requires a lot of versatility, and that was one of the things that was kind of implanted in me very early, is diversity is survival for an actor. It's certainly true in the theater. You find in film and television maybe not so much. A lot of actors are personas and they're the same every time you see them, but I never really was much interested in that. So Star Trek was a wonderful world to be able to continue to be diverse. So that's one aspect. The other is the ability to be chameleonic, is that I had a support system around me that allows me to do that. The difference between Shran and Wei-Yun is so marked because I have production design elements that are supporting me. And
you're now joined by Ira Steven Behr?
And Ira Steven Behr gives me the stink eye and walks away. Yeah, you too. I love that man. And so that's another key element to why I can be so different, is because I just have help. And as far as deciding what to do, there's the cerebral part of it, and then there's just the instinct. Sometimes there's no time to think about it. You just you get there at 3:30 in the morning with a new character you've never seen, and they throw this stuff on you so that you're ready at 7 when everybody else comes, and maybe you have 15 minutes to look in the mirror and go, decision time. And so you just kind of have to trust your instinct, make some strong choices.
So my question might sound kind of strange, but we talked about theatre, and obviously...
I talked about what?
We talked about theatre, and
yes.
Obviously explained that you've portrayed many different roles in the theatre.
Right.
But one of the things that a lot of people experience while working on Star Trek is the amount of prosthetics and makeup somebody has to wear.
Yes.
Does that make portraying the character harder, difficult, or just very different?
Actually, it doesn't. It makes it, to me anyway, it makes it freeing. I'm free because it informs me. Much like, I guess, a layman's way of looking at it is, if you wear cowboy boots and if you wear tennis shoes, you carry yourself differently. A different aspect of you comes to the fore. You put on a Halloween costume, you embody that almost instinctually, like a kid putting on a towel and has a stick or a sword, and they feel complete, right? They commit to it. So it's much the same like that. Also, in my training, I went through a course called Mask Work. I had a wonderful movement teacher, and he had all these various masks. Some of them were quite character, and some of them were very neutral. And so putting on a mask as a Star Trek character, he was like, well, yeah, this is a continuation of what he sort of taught me. I felt very comfortable with it. Some actors can't handle it. They're very get claustrophobic. They feel like they've lost themselves. They don't know how to emote through it. They feel like it's completely covered them. And I've never really felt that way. I look in the mirror and say, oh, okay, I think I'm going this way with this one. That's the way it makes me feel anyway. So,
Thanks. Just to follow up from that and then really quickly, so you played so many different characters on almost every incarnation of Star Trek.
Except the first.
100%. They put on the makeup on you. How much direction did they give you from? How much would like Ira Behr say, okay, well this character's going to be different, or did they just say, oh, this is Jeffrey, we know what he's doing, just do it?
Yeah, you'd be surprised how little they give you.
Yeah.
And in a way, that's that's a nod of confidence that I'll do it.
Yeah.
But in another way, I'm sort of like, well, okay, I better
be an Endorian.
How about a little help?
Yeah.
But there is the script. The script informs you of certain things.
Right.
Being Shran, I saw sort of a military kind of quality, which Wayun doesn't have at all.
Right.
So there are touchstones that can help you. But for the most part, no, there's nobody. When I first played Shran, I thought honestly that the director didn't like what I was doing at all. No notes, no feedback. I just thought, oh boy, I must blow jumps here because this is. I'm not getting any. And the fact of the matter is, they were just busy with other things, and that problem is solved, so I don't have to even go there.
Yeah. But
I don't know that.
Right.
Sometimes actors need a little reassurance.
Right.
I don't need my ego boosted. I just need to hear, you're on, you're good. You're in the zone. Stay there. And that's all we really need sometimes. But that doesn't mean you get it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and enjoy your weekend and all the rest of the future.
This round table.
Obviously, it's been 25 years since kind of Deep Space Nine. It seems to have been an incredible time for you as an actor, kind of post Star Trek.
Yeah.
What's it kind of been like for you? Like, I always think of you in these incredible roles, and particularly like 24. It's quite an amazing role that you had in so many respects. What's been life like for you post Deep Space Nine and your connection with Star Trek in that time too?
Well, as soon as Deep Space Nine ended, I just couldn't get run over as an actor. I couldn't get a part. I couldn't get anything. And then Martin Campbell made a movie called Vertical Limit. I can't remember what that was now. But
it was the first ever DVD I owned, for what it's worth.
There you go. And it was in like 1999 or something like that. And it was the first job I got. My agent organised it and said, Duncan, I know you're having trouble getting work. I have got you a part in Vertical Limit. Martin is a friend of mine, and you're just go and do it. Do a good job, and for God's sake, don't let me down. So I got this basically gimme job from my agent to try and help bail me out of my spiraling career at that point. Partly because Star Trek in those days was a real credibility problem. And it's not the same anymore, but you came off Star Trek, you were just basically a soap star. And once I did that movie, I waited a couple of years, did another movie in a similar way, still couldn't get run over. Then I came to England and did a show called Spooks, MI5. I think it's called MI5 in the United States. And that was just the right time. People were just beginning to get freaked out about Islam and getting people infiltrating the UK and the USA, and just caught this cultural wave. And I just played this old dude who was a spy who everyone thought was hateful. He turned out to be amazing and wonderful, and it hit a sweet spot that everyone went, okay, you've just humanized an element of Islam. And then 9/11. And then 9/11. And that changed everybody's lives. And from my point of view, it became, suddenly Kingdom of Heaven and Syriana, and then I just started playing the Arab character because there were very few Arab actors at the time. and that kind of cemented my career. And then people went, well, we like the fact you did Star Trek because it kind of made you famous, but we'd really like you to do this because you did a great job in Syriana, or we loved Kingdom of Heaven. So that's why I'm here today. It's just pure serendipity.
Absolutely. You take it, Tim?
No, go. You keep going.
With this, one of the main things of kind of the documentary is this imaginary season 8. Have you ever kind of imagined where you would be, the character would be after 5 years and stuff?
Someone has asked me that. I mean, I have. No, I have. That's a lie. You know what? In my wee small hours, I've imagined that.
Typed up your own fan fiction, posted on the internet.
Absolutely. I think there are two directions Bashir could have gone, which is probably nothing to do with what any of the writers would think. But in my little teeny mind, I thought either he would go along the spy line, where he was invited to become part of an underworld that really no one else, even in the Federation, knew about, which kind of excited me because it meant that there was a nefarious element to the Federation. And Deep Space Nine did hint that the Federation wasn't all roses. These weren't good guys. And when that element came along, played, I think Brian Sadler, Bill Sadler, I can't remember, Sadler anyway, played the guy who recruited me. I thought, okay, he could become a spy master or a spy or something horrendous. The other thing that I thought would happen was I never thought that he would retire or anything. I thought he would just go up the ranks and eventually have to make a choice between the Doctor and the Killer. And the Killer, that would be, a second in command on a ship or something, just leaving the medbay completely behind and dealing with what everybody else deals with. I just thought anything else might be kind of he had so much potential for shit by the time he finished, in my head, Deep Space Nine, that I thought you can do anything with this character. You can go anywhere.
Have you seen the documentary?
No.
Okay, so it's really interesting because we watched it last night with Ira, and
I'm in space.
What you just said about where the character is going, because they have the whole writers' room thing about what
I think that they will do a completely different thing.
Let's see.
Because I did the computer game, and the computer game, it's unusual. They asked me to come and do the computer game, and they said, there's a Star Trek computer game, a massively multiplayer game online, and they said, we think your character just ended up being a professor in the academy because he's not, he wasn't very capable. I was really offended by that because I thought Bashir by season 8 was remarkably capable, and certainly me as an actor, it would be capable of taking him pretty much anywhere, because I went on to do 24 as a asshole, and I can do you name it, I'll take it, that character anywhere you want to take it. So I was kind of offended, but I thought, well, that must be what the writers thought.
I'm really interested to see.
We'll meet in the bar afterwards.
We'll meet in the bar, because actually what you just said and what they come up with, there's an interesting parallel.
I'm curious. Also, his unpopularity has haunted me.
To LA. And I couldn't abandon them mid-ship.
Producers in Hollywood's minds are fixed. So when Bashir first came out, and people weren't enamored of him, they still see him. So they're like, not Bashir, because he's like, throws like a girl.
Well, I wish you all the best, and Daniel Craig's only got one more Bond to go, so
there's no way I'm getting there.
I wish you all the best and good luck with the film.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Take care.
So I wanted to ask you a question about Lita and Rom. Because I thought it was a very interesting relationship in the sense that Rom is not seen as a very glamorous character, especially by his brother, and yet Lita doesn't seem to think that at all, and she sees beyond what everyone else thinks, and marries him, and their relationship is, I would say, quite a unique relationship in Deep Space Nine, because they're a species relationship, they're two very different people, and I want to know what you thought of their relationship when you were acting, when you were playing her.
Thank you. What a great question. First of all, I'd say I think you're right. It is a unique relationship in Deep Space Nine. And I think even in all of Star Trek, it's a very unique relationship. But it's also a very Star Trek message that the Dabo girl would fall for the guy who was only pretty on the inside. And I think that is so much about what the heart of Star Trek is about. People aren't definable by what you see or by their exterior. You can't judge a horse by its cover. And in Lita, getting to know Mom and seeing his heart, which was just as big as as big as the universe to Lita, and it really was. I mean, Rom has this amazing heart and this incredible sensibility. He has a loyal spirit, and he was seen as the kid brother, the awkward, clumsy one. But he was extremely strong and smart and fun and funny and creative and clever, and Lita fell in love with all that. And so it's interesting, while it is a very Star Trek message, but was unique to Deep Space Nine and kind of unique in that way. You don't have a lot of other interspecies relationships where with those dynamics. On the other hand, it is a relationship that happens in the world. And that's so refreshing. I have to say, people ask sometimes, what was your favorite moment on Star Trek? And whenever someone asks that, I always say a moment from real life, when someone has come up to me in real life and told me what the show meant. Those moments really surpass anything that we did, in my opinion. Anything that we did on screen or in the makeup trailer or on set. The moments when someone comes up and tells you what it meant to their life, those are by far the best. And I have a new one as of today, because the man I just did an interview with, should I tell you who he was with? Sure, he's a man from Riker's Beer. He told me that Lita's and Rom's relationship really impacted him when he was a young single kid in college, and that because Lita loved Rom, that gave him the confidence to go and talk with and eventually start dating and eventually marry. And now he has children with a girl who was really beautiful, who he would have possibly otherwise thought he couldn't have. And that, what an honor to be part of a storyline that helps that happen in the world, and that helps, not that it's, I'm sorry I'm going on, but this is so important. We should all see each other for who we are on the inside. And Roddenberry's ideals of infinite diversity and infinite combination are exactly that. It's so that we can see each other partly for who we are on the outside, because diversity is beautiful, but also primarily for who we are on the inside, and know that we all want the same things, we all have the same dreams and hopes and desires, we all just want to be loved, and we all want to contribute, be loved and respected and cherished and seen for who we are. So it all ties together, doesn't it? I'm just grateful and honored. And I'll say one more thing, if it's okay. You couldn't ask for a better partner in all of this than Max Bredenchik. He is so lovely as a person and so creative. And I was thinking this morning about when I love seeing him, and I was thinking, who knew that Max was going to grow up and become this incredible writer, that he writes all these songs now for the Ferengi family and for the Rat Pack. You know about these, right? Yeah. Who knew that he was going to become like the great creative force behind the new excitement of Deep Space Nine, right? And I'm so excited because it's letting him have more of that limelight that he so deserves.
Yeah. For me, I'm curious as well that outside of Star Trek, you have your anti-bullying campaign and charity. I'm curious about when you see, especially sort of science fiction fandom, we see backlash to things like Doctor Who, oh no, it's a woman. We see it in Star Trek, oh no, there's a gay couple. All these sorts of things. What should fans kind of learn from campaigns like yours? And does it frustrate you when you see that kind of happening in franchises that are dear to your heart? What can we do to be better?
Yes, it frustrates me. It also shocks me when there was so much backlash. And you could, anybody who doesn't agree with this can just turn it off right now. But I'm going to say what I mean. When there was backlash about a woman being the Doctor, I just thought, what? What show have you been watching? Same as when there was a backlash about a woman being a captain when Kate came up, and even there was backlash for Avery being a black man, and for Sonequa being a black woman. There was backlash for Star Wars, and you just go, what? Have you not even watched? What is wrong with you that you can't see beyond color and that you also can't appreciate color and just know that we're being inclusive, and that's it. It just, if they were fans of some other show, fine. But it just confuses me, and it makes me think, what do you watch our shows for? Is it just for the space battles? Is it not for the messages and meanings? Because I can't even imagine that we're watching the same show if you don't love this diversity.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't get that process either.
Right?
But, yeah. But no, I think what your campaign is doing is really good and stuff like that. It's great to see.
Thank you. Well, just like who knew that Rom would grow up and become this great force of creativity, who knew that Lita would grow up to be this social justice maven, and trying to save the world with all her heart. But it's worth it. And
I think Star Trek's generated a lot of social justice warriors, as it were, over the decades, and fans. I think it's inspired a lot of people to go down ways of accepting diversity. I think for myself, watching as a young kid, you just automatically accept it. It's the bridge, that's real life. Sometimes real life clashes with what we see in Star Trek.
Well, it's because Star Trek is at its heart, is and always has been, about hope for a better world. It's always been about making the world the kind of world where we can all live long and prosper. And that comes at a price. It shouldn't come at the price of war. It wouldn't come at the price of war, because war is the opposite of that. But it comes at the price of us standing up and using our voices and risking our reputations. And if you don't want to follow me on Twitter because I say things that support diversity and justice, and because I speak against our president because he's an asshole, then don't follow me. But I'm going to say what I mean, and that is one of the core messages of Deep Space Nine, is be who you are, and be it proudly. And when the chips are down, risk is our business. As human beings, we need to stand up for what's right.
Absolutely. Solidarity.
I'm curious, just on the bullying front. I mean, we've also heard, Lee was talking about bullying within the fandom. We've also heard about bullying within the entertainment industry. The way that kind of these workplaces can be quite difficult environments. Was that something that you'd ever experienced in your own work, kind of inspired you towards that, or was it more to do with, bullying in schools and so on? What was your kind of route into that?
Thank you. That's a good question. I have been bullied. Everyone in this profession has. Bullying, rejection, marginalization, all of that it comes from the same very sad, painful place. It doesn't feel good. And all of us, I think, have been through it at some point in our lives. And I realized that bullying is the same dynamic, whether it's kindergarten on the playground or, high school or relationship bullying or workplace bullying or gang membership or war or rampant inequality with corporations bullying their employees. It all comes down to oppression that has no place in human relationships. It's not right. It's not fair. It's just wrong. And what I realized is that it is all the same dynamic. And so if we teach people at a young age the joy of inclusion and the beauty of diversity, then we can in time truly have a better world. It's hard to change adults' minds and hearts. It takes something really transcendent, perhaps like great film and television can change people's minds and hearts when they're older. But if we can get kids when they're young and teach them with stories they love, then I may never even live to see it, but I truly believe that in time will create the world we want to live in. So what we use, and just for, we haven't said the name, but my charity that I founded in 2013 is called Pop Culture Hero Coalition. And you can find us online, social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, at Superhero IRL, like in real life, so at Superhero IRL. And we're the first ever organization to make a stand against bullying, racism, misogyny, LGBTQI bullying, cyberbullying, and other forms of injustice using these stories. So our motto is, we love superheroes, why not be one? Why not be Captain Kirk? Why not be, well, he did a few things, so I don't know. But why not be the heroes that we love on screen?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and so I'm sorry I'm going on, but this is really important. Hearts and minds are never changed by pointing a finger at somebody and telling them what to do. Hearts and minds are always changed by inspiration. And stories and music are the two things that will inspire people towards social change. So that's what we're doing. We have programs in schools. I'll just tell you a little more. You have time?
To go. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I partnered with some amazing people. I partnered with clinical psychologists who are pop culture fluent. So these people have podcasts and books they've written about pop culture in psychology. So Dr. Janina Scarlett, she's amazing, look her up, and Dr. Andrea Letamendi, they both, this is what they do, and Dr. Alima too, and then Carrie Goldman, who is an award-winning writer on ending bullying, and I partnered with all these experts and psychologists to create this 32-point curriculum. So it's very specific, and it's about building empathy and building resilience for kids who have been bullied, but building empathy for their peers and saying, look, be nice, be kind. We all want the same thing. No one gets any, even if you did get further in life, if you are bullying someone, it's because you're hurting inside. So what's going on with that? And let's get to the root of those problems, right? We have one more motto I'll say: hurt people, and healed people, heal people. So I want to say this to anyone out there who has been bullied: it was never your fault. It's always about the bully. Yeah. So you can just take that and go, you know what? That is not mine. It's like someone handing you a piece of shit. Is that yours? No. Yeah. You don't have to take it. You don't have to eat it. It's not yours. It has nothing to do with you. And just know that it has to do with them. And you are beautiful and strong. And you have every right to be exactly who you are.
I don't know how we follow that.
Thank you.
Well, I will say then to bring it back to the personal stories now, because I was going to ask some similar questions. But there is a little bit of so when my wife and I got together in 2004, my wife is not a Trekkie. She knows more than the average bear just because of she's like she used to live with me by osmosis, right? And when we started dating, we were living here in London in 2004, and you and Max were doing this tiny little sci-fi convention. It wasn't even like a Star Trek convention. And I was like, let's come with me. It was kind of like a Star Trek convention. Come with me. And she totally came with me. And she and you hosted a trivia contest, right? And my wife had made at the time, she made herself a t-shirt that said my boyfriend is a Trekkie, and so she wanted to support me. And so you had me and a couple of people on stage to this trivia contest. My wife asked the question, and it was the beginning of her accepting my absolute geekiness. How good is that?
So sweet.
Yeah. And so it was just you and Max and a whole bunch of other kind of actors from other sci-fi series. But I only came because of Deep Space Nine. I was like, Alicia, we're gonna go to this thing, and you're gonna
that is
learn.
So sweet.
Yeah, so anyway, so it was a little.
Where are you from, by the way?
From Miami.
From Miami.
Yeah.
So you were over here. You live over here.
So we moved here to do a master's at LSE. My wife is also from Miami, but we were introduced. We didn't know each other. We were kind of set up on a blind date by our grandmothers who have known each other since the 50s, right?
Oh my God.
So it's there's an entire novella here. Anyway, but we were introduced. We hit it off right away, and very early on in our relationship, I was like, look, I am a massive sci-fi geek, and I'm just warning you. You gotta accept it. And there's this convention coming up. You need to come with me in England, in London, right?
So funny.
And it was 2004, and it was just you and Max. And the only reason I went was because Deep Space Nine is my favorite show. No, there were other people, but there weren't. Right. There wasn't anybody. I don't even remember. I honestly don't remember.
I totally remember.
But it was this tiny thing. And it was just you and Max.
Yes.
And so I went because it was Deep Space Nine. And my wife was like, all right, if you're into this weird ass shit, fine, I am all into. And she made herself a shirt and went out, and it was so funny. So when she thinks of the beginning of our relationship, that was a very important defining moment of our relationship. And she was like, this is really weird, but all right, whatever, girl. You go. So yeah, she's gonna get a kick the fact that I was able to tell you the story.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Tell her I said good job.
Yeah, exactly, 100%.
Yeah, that is love.
Yeah, and
but
12
years later. But now she
later,
loves the show, right? Now she gets it.
Actually, it's so funny. She would not necessarily say that. She's watched Discovery and legitimately wanting to wait for the next episode. And Deep Space Nine. I watch Hutchison all the time, and
Yeah.
she likes it. You know, she's into it.
Right.
She'll be on her phone while I'm watching it, but you know, she's there. She's supportive.
Right
you know?
on,
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah, exactly. Anyway, so I couldn't really follow the questions because they were all so good, so I figured I might as well just tell you the story.
I am glad you did.
There you go.
Thank you very much. Yes, I've gone out on those limbs for you know,
Yeah.
but then you find like you're just as big a fan as the, you know, because at one point I learned, baseball, football, soccer, basketball, tennis. I was just like, I learned all these sports for someone, and then I was like, wait, when are we going? When are we going back?
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
No, it's true.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very
joining
much
us,
for
Chase. It's
joining
been a
me.
real pleasure.
Thank you for letting me go on. You guys check out popculturehero.org, and we have T-shirts that are for sale that support our programs in schools. Just to let you know, I've been volunteer since 2013 for all of this. I've never made a dime on this work, but it is my passion. Come with us and create a better world with us. So we'd love your support.
Perfect. We'll put the links.
Well, we'll
in the
put
show
the
notes
links
here.
on all the websites. And
Heard it here first. I have been asked by Dean Devlin's company. Do you know Dean? Stargate, Leverage, the Librarians, Independence Day, everything. So Dean's an old friend, and I've been asked by his company to host a Discovery podcast.
There you go.
Yes. Do you love Discovery?
Yeah.
Yes, I love Discovery, and I love the cast, and I'm super excited about this. And this is actually the first time I've told anybody on tape or anything.
Yeah.
So heard it here
So wait,
first.
you're a rival now then? That's what you're
Say
trying
it
to say.
again.
You're a podcast rival now.
all these guys podcast.
No, we're partners, baby.
Sounds good to me.
Partners. Partners. So I hope you join us, and maybe we'll have like podcast partner of the week or something.
100%. Well, when it comes out, we will promote it. We will
definitely.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd Party.